Today we're going to be talking about choice and dignity. Many of our clients that we serve, they have some intellectual disabilities, right? My wife spoke to a young lady at her job who was involved in the Youth Works program who said, "Hey, I just graduated." And she said, "Well, where did you graduate from?" She said, "An unaccredited high school." And she's like, "Well, do you have a diploma?" And she says, "No, I have a certificate of attendance." So it's like, "Did you graduate?" She's like, "Well, I'm waiting to get my results from my GED program." So so she had a lot of intellectual disabilities, and a lot of the kids that we work with, they take some things literal versus factual. So when we're talking with them, it's just we have to be cognizant in terms of what we say, because they think that that's the truth. They think that that's really going to happen. They have a sense of learned helplessness and learned hopelessness. And it's our job to recognize, what their strengths are and help them bring it out so that they can have some individual choice and also have some dignity within their lifestyles. Because if you've been in care from the ages of 5, 6 years old, when you're 18 years old, it's sort of, you become institutionalized. So this training is really going to discuss the different choices that our clients can make, the ways that we can help them as clinicians make those choices, and how to strive with them to get some dignity within their lives, and pretty much really focus on their humanity and not them just being a client. Because I always like to say that our clients are not going to be clients the rest of their life unless they choose an institutionalized lifestyle where they go from foster care to incarceration to receiving some benefits, welfare, some sorts of entitlements for the rest of their lives, and just be like the ward of the state for the rest of their life. So they actually could be, the product of the state that they reside in, but we don't want that for them. So we want to equip them with all of the tools that's necessary for them to be independent. So our training summary today is: people with intellectual disabilities have much interest in choice and control and decision making as any other person. So although they are clients, they come to us with various diagnoses and stories, they still have as much choice as you and I do. Shared control of choices create outcomes that satisfies everyone's desires and concerns. So although it can be difficult for us, it's definitely important that we focus on our clients becoming independent and self-sufficient. So as we broker these relationships with our clients and work with them for long periods of time, it's easy for us to look at them as though they're our children, right? It's like they're our children, particularly if we have been caring for them and watching them grow for a long period of time, having them on our caseload from the age of 5 years old to, time of transitioning or aging out. So the things that we can help them with in terms of making choices would be acquiring gainful employment, securing housing, and how to establish some healthy relationships within their life. Because for many of our clients, if they are coming from their biological families to us, they may have some real difficulties with just that relationship in general of relating with mom or dad, grandma, grandpa, just saying, why did they even allow me to be in foster care, be in this system? So some objectives of today's training, I'll go through each one, is define choice making. That's what we're going to look at. Look at its importance. Show how choice making leads to self-determination. Define self-determination, which is a big chunk of this presentation. Learn to encourage people to communicate their choices, and discuss our role in allowing people to experience dignity of risk, right? Because there are a lot of risks. There are a lot of folks that are out there that will take advantage of our clients as well. And that's something that we try to help them navigate, who is on our side, who are potential predators to take advantage of them, and who has their best interest at heart. Some of our clients, if you're not the same race or ethnicity as them, or even sometimes the same gender as them, they don't trust you. But really teaching them that there are people that don't look like you, that are from different genders, different cultures, different backgrounds, that really have your best interests at hand. So allowing them that ability to trust other people to get what they need. So what is choice making? Choice making is the act of an individual's selection of a preferred alternative from among several familiar options. So basically, it is just choosing what's right and what's wrong. Okay, we want to give them that ability to know what's right and what's wrong, and encourage them to think critically, right? To allow them to think critically, to think on their own, to process some things before they do it. With kids in general, they don't necessarily have to be in foster care, but just with teenagers in general, we know even we're products of this, we would act impulsively. Right? We would just go and do what our group did, what the people around us did, because that's what we felt that we needed to do. What is choice? Choice is making means letting them stand by themselves. We are allowing them stand on their own 2 feet, right? We're coaching them, and then we want to give them some wiggle room, but we don't want to go too far, because in case they fall, we want to be there to catch them, okay? So we want to also give them the tools that they need so that they can be independent, so that they can stand by themselves. Some of the things that you want to ask your clients, or even just define within the respective clients that you serve, you want to see, is this client independent? Are they interdependent? Are they codependent? Or are they dependent? Because everybody's different. So if they're independent, those are the individuals that are going to find the places that's hiring. They're going to fill out the applications on their own. They're going to go and get the outfits for the interviews. Those are the individuals who know how to tie their own tie, pick appropriate dresses to wear to the interview. Interdependent are those types of individuals that, they can work with other children or other adults to get what they need, right? They know where to go for some assistance. Codependent are just 2 dependent people who are working off of each other's energy to get whatever they want. And dependent is like they totally can't do anything on their own. When it's time to make a major decision, they're holding somebody. They want someone to hold their hand to help them to get some things accomplished. So we want to get them to be independent. Out of that 4, we definitely want to get them to be independent and interdependent, because we want them to work on their own. But if they have some difficulties, we want them to have the tools available to access some resources from other people to get the assistance that they need. So some client actions, okay? Goal directed, okay, so knowing where we are going, something, doing, and working to achieve an end result. So basically just having a goal, right? Having a goal, because if you're helpless and you're hopeless, a lot of folks that are feeling like this, they don't have goals, right? They don't think that they will ever leave their neighborhood, that they'll ever have, a 6-digit figure job. They don't believe that they can go to college or have a relationship or have a family that's functional, but really just setting a lot of small goals for them that are achievable, right? We want to set some small goals for them and just documenting that so that they can see and measure their own level of success. So self-regulated goals, right? Making sure that they make the right choices, because there are choices out there, but just making sure that the choices that they make are right, because they're right or wrong choices. Especially with youth, the choices that they make today can impact the rest of their lives, and really letting them know the importance of those choices and just the role that they play within their own lives. Because if they're dependent or they have that victim mentality, they make a choice that's going to affect their lives, and then they're not going to take any responsibility for that. So they're going to blame the social worker, they're going to blame the teacher, they're going to blame, their employer, their parent, the foster parent, or so forth, right? So it's that victim mentality. But we want to work with them to get them from being victims to being creators. So many, within all of the cities, but I'll talk about Baltimore because that's where we work and practice. It's a lot of folks that walk around and they say that we're victims. We're getting all of these murders going on for the past, over the summer so far. Summer's not even over. We're like halfway through the summer. And I was listening to Mark Steiner 2 days ago, and people were calling in and they were saying, well, it's the mayor's fault. It's people not policing the community. It's the police's fault. It's the new commissioner's fault. But it was just victim mentality. It was like no one was really taking responsibility for their own community. So we want to have folks being able to take responsibility for their own community, but also becoming that creator, right? So thinking, okay, these are the issues that are impacting my community, but here are some solutions that can enhance my community to make it a better, safer place, okay? Autonomous behavior, okay, making decisions on their own, right? We want them to be able to make decisions on their own and not it be a mob type of reaction or a group think type of reaction. One person says something that's negative, everybody sort of gets on that bandwagon and disagrees, and they don't even know what they're agreeing with. They just going with what the group said. That's that group think mentality. So wanting them to think autonomous and think as an individual. Questions or comments before I go on?
What are we talking about?
Choice and dignity. See, if you would have came at 9, no.
Hey, we was backed up.
Yeah, so it's choice and dignity. So choice and dignity. So basically, really equipping our clients with the tools to make choices for themselves and having some dignity and not looking at themselves as a client or being a victim or just helpless or hopeless, but really equipping them with those tools to be a creator, to be self-determined. So just segueing into that is just self-determination as it pertains to school, right? So as a student, they need to be able to self-regulate themselves. So to devise a plan to say, hey, this is my assignment. I need to read X amount of pages, or I need to, have a paper with, within this format, right? But just to complete some short-term goals for themselves. Self-advocacy. If they're having some difficulties within school, being able to request help. Right, being able to talk to the instructor after class and just really having a way an outlet to say, I really need help. I started teaching again this semester. I took a semester off. I started teaching again this past week was my first week back. And I gave them the first assignment was, tell me about yourself. What's your major? Why did you choose that major? And what do you see yourself doing with that major within the next 5 years? Pretty simple for us, right? We take that and just knock that ball out the park. That's like I'm throwing that ball right down the middle of the plate. But for some people, that was difficult, right? People were emailing me. People, saying, well, I don't know what to do with this paper. I never wrote about myself before. This is college. This is college. This is the 13th grade. So they're like, what do you do about this? So there's one woman that emailed me. I didn't even respond to her because within the chapter, it tells you all of these things that you would need to know to do this paper, let alone that it's your life. So you need to know your own life, right? So what she did was she came on campus and went to someone to, at these English labs to help her write this paper, which was reasonable somewhat. But then when she went to the lab, they said, well, you need a referral from the instructor. And she says, well, he's not around. He's not a tenured professor. So she went to another office and they said, well, look, I'll give you a referral. And they went there and they walked her through doing this paper. And she said that once she finished reading the chapter, she learned about herself to say, hey, versus, I was playing the role as a victim. Like I wasn't taking any responsibility. I was going to all of these offices to find somebody to help me write about myself. And she's like, nobody could know myself except me. And I said, precisely. And that's why I didn't answer your phone calls or your emails when you called me or emailed me, because I wanted her to realize that on her own, because that's not what college is about, bouncing off from one person to another person. Sometimes, as you guys all know, you're going to be in that dorm room or in that apartment late nights, trying to figure it out, study groups, all of those things, and really going really hard with it to get what you want, doing today what others won't so that you can live tomorrow like others can't. So being self-determined and really whatever it is, but in this, for this example, your education being important to you to be self-determined to get that end result. Yes, ma'am.
A thought just came across my mind too. She could have been intimidated by the fact that she had to write. Some people don't write well. Mm-hmm. And when they have to write, they're intimidated and they kind of like block. Mm-hmm. She probably couldn't see how easy it was. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, you're right. And I know that from previous courses, and that was something that, I did talk to the whole entire class about was, this is why they are here. This is why, to learn, and this is their first college course ever. So not to be intimidated by it, and not to be intimidated by being successful and making some choices that are different. So in order for them to be successful, they must think in a way about themselves than they ever did before. So looking at the academic you and changing all of those stereotypes or experiences that happened to them, that's all in the past, because she was an older, she was an older student. I said she was in her late 40s, early 50s, and so she was really intimidated just being in a class, like being like the oldest person in the class was could be intimidating for her. But just letting them know, like just coaching her on, letting her know what she needs, but also letting them know you have the responsibility to read these chapters, right? Because she went to look for help before she even read the chapter. Now that was her responsibility, right? So taking that personal responsibility and then, putting it forth, being self-determined to get it done by any means necessary. But in order to do that, you need to be self-aware. So knowing what you're capable of and knowing what you can't do, right? So knowing what you can do, and what you cannot do. But really that takes knowing yourself. And the last is self-efficacy. So know the consequences and the impact of your actions. So if she didn't do that paper, she was going to get an F, right? So she was going to have to do it regardless, okay? So goal selection. So our clients should become motivated to engage in transition planning. They should be able to do some self-evaluation of important skills that will make the transition go well. So, and it's always good to, we work with our clients and we kind of get caught in a routine. And just as we get caught in a routine, they do as well. So it would behoove us to periodically take some steps back and just review where they start, the starting point and where they came, right? And go from A to B. And we can do that periodically, like every 3 months. I'm not sure if you guys do that with them now. Do you do that with them now? Like periodically just look at the accomplishments that they made? How often? How many intervals? Every 3 months. Yeah, okay. And how does that work out? Do they see it? Do they feel celebrated? Do they feel happy that they accomplished these goals, or they don't give a hoot?
I say it does depend on the client. It really does. Some are really happy when there's progress made, but after 3 months, if no progress is made or negative progress is made, they don't want to talk about it.
Do the ones that are successful, do they want to? Are they pumped up and they want to achieve more goals or bigger goals, or they just want to continue to have a bunch of short-term goals, or they just don't give a hoot?
They don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. Why do you guys think they don't care?
I think it's that learned helplessness.
Yeah.
I think it's just that they expect to fail. So don't set the goals too high because so for themselves they don't want to set any higher goal because that expectation of failure. So I think they tend to lean toward those smaller goals, those short term.
And what are your roles as clinicians with them when they achieve these goals? Are you guys celebrating it? Are you guys excited with them? Woo, you did a great job. Or you're just like, wow, you did really good. Or because sometimes we have to get out of our element even when we're tired. We talked about this pretty much over the past months. And, it's easy to be pretty much docile within our approach. But sometimes, especially with children, sometimes we got to get a little bit animated. But how do you guys respond to their achievements as well?
I guess we try to be a cheerleader, especially with the younger ones, because they really love it when their foster parent or adults in general really praise them as soon as they do the right thing. And I've noticed that, for some of my young adult clients, I have to specify what they did was good. Say, yeah, I think it's great that you went to see the doctor today. Even though back when I was their age, the 20s, 19-year-old, I would just go see the doctor with no problem. Right. And I have to say, okay, they're not used to doing that on their own.
Sure.
So I commend them for doing that. And, they say good for you, and they kind of take it the right way. I know if I got too excited, they would see, they can fit as phony.
It feels phony, right. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that it's good, and it's a fine line. So just knowing your clients and know know who's going to be more receptive to that extra animation and who's not, but also knowing that you could have a client that's 19 years old but cognitively be 12 years old and still having to approach them like a 12-year-old because of arrested development, and just meeting them in the middle as well. So that's important. So choose goals in 4 important areas. Okay, so personal life goals, career goals, education, and living on their own. So really compartmentalizing those different goals and allowing them to choose, because we don't want to choose all of the goals for them, right? We want to allow them to come up with some things that they want to achieve. Because I think when they come up with some things that they want to achieve, then that's going to excite them. I mean, I know that for the folks in the corporate companies or in the healthcare industry where I do trainings with HR on like workplace change or different leadership type of trainings, one of the things that I encourage HR and management to do is to go around to each individual and find out what motivates them. Because what motivates you may not motivate you. It may motivate all of us differently. So really focusing on what motivates them is sort of like identifying what their goals are. Right, and as I can address your different respective needs, rather, you feel validated, and it's more buy-in when you feel as though I'm focusing on what you want versus what you think I want, but it's probably what you need, right? But you feel more buy-in because you came up with this, right? You came up with this goal, and we're working on it together. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So take a leadership role in their own personal transition in their planning. And so that's what you want to do. Allow them to do this because they are becoming leaders within their own life, because you're giving them those tools again to making it on their own. Moving along. All right, response to intervention, RTI. Anybody familiar with the RTI model? It's a research-based program. The clinician observed the internal and external triggers of the youth, right? So what are going to trigger them, what positively and negatively, but clinicians, we just focus on the behaviors only. So this isn't like the normal behavior modifications. This is more of a systemic approach. And when you utilize the RTI approach, and let's say you go and leave and get another job, the next clinician that comes in your place that practices the RTI approach, that just focuses on the behaviors, like it allows for anybody to step into those shoes and to work with that client, right? Because behavioral, we all could have different ways that we could approach the client and work with them to achieve those goals. Response, treatment, intervention. Response to intervention, rather. Response to intervention. Okay? So this is a different tool for us to have in order to address our clients. Okay? Parent involvement, which is great. I'm loving it because I'm not sweating up here.
I don't know what's wrong.
I'm loving it because I'm like, man, if I'm sweating, it's getting dried up real quick. Right. Well, parent involvement. All right, so parents must be involved in this as well. So most of the time, it's a tertiary type of approach, right? It's with the parents being involved. So this is the home, the community, so the friends, family, cousins, and the school. So having those 3 components all are a part of that client being successful, right? So
I know the parent is in their right mind. Because I'm finding that the parents is causing these kids some issues. They can be stable, and then the parents come in, and then the children acted up again. And I feel like the state and whomever is responsible for that child should make sure the parent right first before they bring them back into the life. I think that's the downfall.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and it's hard because it's hard on both ends, because I feel that you have the children are with their foster parents, and then they go back to their biological parents trying to establish a relationship with them, but they go back to a home that's chaotic. So when they come back to the foster home, you had the foster parents had to deprogram them and try to teach them all of the stuff that they already taught them. And then sometimes you have some foster parents that could be belligerent as well. And then it becomes this normalized behavior, this abnormal behaviors are normalized. And we see it every day. We see people walking in the street with what? Pajamas on and a big old thing on there, their hair's in a doobie, right? I'm like, man, did you take a shower this morning?
That's the first thing I think of.
I'm like, did you take a
I
shower?
don't know why they don't get that connection. Like, I'm thinking you're dirty when I see you in pajamas outside.
Right, exactly.
I don't think you took a shower and put the pajamas on.
And then my next thought is, are you going to crawl back in the bed with that stuff on? Like, you
No,
know?
they do. I think someone might take a shower and put the pajamas
They do.
on. But why are you in a mall with
Pajamas.
Pajamas, yeah.
That is so nasty to me.
And then just how to process behaviors, like what's appropriate behavior, like how to deal with or how to handle conflict, right? So they see their parents, arguing and cursing each other out and totally disrespecting each other. And, if they see the foster parents doing this and the biological parents doing this, obviously they're going to think that that's the way you handle conflict. So it's us coming in as Susie and Bob social worker, and we're saying, no, you don't do that. You talk about it. Then we look like the oddball. So they're not invested in this because the people that they love, right, it's like we're phony, right? It looks like we're phony when we're really not being phony. We're really being factual and really trying to give them the appropriate choice so that they can have some dignity within their lives to make the appropriate decisions and have a functional life. But sometimes they don't choose that because if it's someone that they love, that's what they were brought up into. So it's me difficult. So the intake process, one of the things about the intake process that we have to get that's really crucial is the disorder, the symptoms. What types of medication does the child take? Why do they take these medications? What are the medications doing? How does the prescribed medication help the child? I mean, this is utilizing a medical model, right? So if you had a family member who ever been to the doctor for cancer or even autism to some degree, they'll give you pamphlets on, hey, these are the medications that you have to take. This is why you're going to take these medications. These are the side effects, okay? This is the diagnosis, because the goal is to have that parent, to have those caretakers know every iota of this disorder, right? Because if we think about it, how many of our children's biological parents or how many of the foster parents really know about the disorders, right? We would ask mom or dad, what's wrong with little Kareem? Hey, he's bad, right? He ain't following directions, right? He's off the chain. Right, but they don't really know that that's ADHD. What are the symptoms of ADHD? But that's one thing I do appreciate about Parker Therapeutic. Out of all of the child welfare organizations that I've conducted trainings for, you guys have asked for me to do trainings on ADHD.
Bam.
And so those things. So when I do those types of trainings with those individuals, with those parents, the light bulb goes off, and then they start self-revealing. They start saying, wow, I have a cousin that does that, because there's so many families where they have someone with a mental illness within their family, and they just accept that person is the elephant in the room. Say, hey, that's Uncle Johnny. He's always talking to himself. Give him an extra plate of chicken and some macaroni and cheese and put him in the corner, right? And we're just going to ignore him, and we're just going to play spades and act like we don't even see him. And we all have somebody within our family like that. But when you start telling people what it is and actually educating them, and they know the big picture, right? They know the big picture, and they know what it is. And with our kids, it's time sensitive. I know Ms. Linda knows those referrals come from placement.
Okay.
You don't got a lot of time to be going through and say, what's the diagnosis? But we get this big packet. We get that 818. We get that big packet about this child, and it's hard to transition all of this information. We have to review it, filter it, give it to somebody else, educate them. Everybody's diagnosis is different, so it can be very difficult. So it can get lost in translation, but essentially that's what we want. We ultimately want to have everybody having the same knowledge, right? We want to make sure that the school teachers know about the diagnoses, the medication, the prescriptions, the people in their community, the family members, even with an employment opportunity, if they get a job, so that they know that if the child responds in a way that's not appropriate or something that's different, that it's not them not being able to follow directions. It could be an adverse effect of their medication or just a part of their pathology. Okay, so just the types of choices that the children can make. Education, and if you think about that, children can get overwhelmed with this. This year, in my life, I don't know what happened. Is like 18 years ago, a lot of people was having babies. It wasn't me, but a lot of kids that I know, my wife and I, they all graduated high school. So the parents are there scratching their head because they have all of these choices that the child has to make, but they're making these for their child. Well, they're working together to make these decisions and choices for their children. But if you're in foster care and you don't have a parent that can help you make these choices, then you're making them on your own. So, do I go to college? Do I get a job? Do I go to community college? Do I stay in state? Do I live on campus? Do I get a part-time job? Do I go to a trade school? If I do go to school, how do I apply for financial aid? Are there any scholarships available? Am I eligible for that? All of these things are overwhelming. So, for us as clinicians to work with the youth that we serve, we want to give them those tools so that they can be able to make those choices, because those are difficult choices if you're awarded a state or have a diagnosis or not. Like, it's just tough choices, but you want to equip them to be able to make an informed decision the best way possible. For careers, vocational, what career do they want to choose, right? What are they good at, right? Really getting a career that's around their, that they can integrate their diagnosis or disability, if you will, into it. So if, like, someone who's autistic, those folks are great on computers, right? They are great on computers. Most of these folks in Napa Valley have some sort of autism, right? Some Asperger syndrome, because they can focus on coding, right? They are great artists. So really finding out what those strengths are that's associated with the diagnoses of your clients to help them get an appropriate career or education. Relationships. How will their relationships impact, if it's a foster family, like relationships, and they go off to college, will they be welcomed back over the break to stay with their foster parents, right? What role is the biological family going to play? Will they be able to get a girlfriend or boyfriend and know that they don't have to repeat the cycle of abuse or neglect or disrespect that they were exposed to by their parents? Housing, right? That's another choice. Where will you live? Will you stay within the state? Will you get independent living? Will you get an apartment? Do you want to be a first-time homeowner? Are you going to live on campus? Substance abuse. This ties it all together, because with so many choices that you have to make, it becomes so overwhelming that someone will say, man, you want to smoke this blunt? And you smoke that blunt and you get so relaxed. It's like, man, this is awesome now, and now you feel like you have control. But then that's where the dependence starts, because you feel that in order to make a choice, you have to smoke some weed to make the choice again. But by the time you smoked, you're so tired that you don't want to do anything, right? Except go get something to eat. Got the munchies.
How you know that, Mike?
Hey, I plead the fifth. No commente. No commente. Okay. When people you support make their own decisions, understand that outcomes may not be secure and predictable. I mean, we all make choices every day. We kind of think we know what the outcome's going to be. We kind of predict what we want it to be. And sometimes it doesn't go out like it is, right? But sometimes when we have a huge goal, something that we're going to do, the outcome also does depend on us, because if we think a positive outcome, we will get positive results. But if you start thinking negative results, it's going to happen. So it's about the way you think as well in terms of the choices that you make. So allow challenges and uncertainty. So again, it's just a part of life. You just have to separate the good from the bad. I always say, they say when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And I coined this. You guys can use this. I say, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade Ciroc. Okay? That's what I say. Okay, that's it. So make it real nice, right? So provide support to make sure the person is not in danger. Right, so those choices again are impactful, and it can definitely change their lives, the course and direction of their lives. So making sure that they make the most appropriate choices for themselves and for their lives, because it's definitely impactful. And as clinicians, I mean, we're home based, right? We are like mom and dad. We want to say, hey, all right, go to that car and touch that car, and we want to stand right there. But if they get close to that car and the engine starts and they get scared, we want them to run on back to daddy, right? Say, it's okay, all right, we're going to do it again. We're going to try it again, okay? And just let them know that they can do it. And then once they continue to do that, and whatever we put ahead of them, or we work together, right? Whatever goals and objectives, we work with them together, and they start doing it on their own independently, then they're not going to need mom and dad to run back to, right? All right, so we create them those safe havens. We celebrate their accomplishments, and anytime that they make failures, because we all fail, right? At our 40 years old, I still fail at some things, right? We never get to a certain age where we always are going to achieve everything. But when our clients fail, we have to make sure that that's a teachable moment to see what did they learn from those experiences, okay? So why is choice making so important? Right? It helps them to define who we are and impacts our quality of life. So making choices allows us to be the president and CEO of our own lives, right? We make those executive decisions for ourselves, right? Because we don't want to be helpless, hopeless, and let somebody else, depend on someone else to control the course of our life, right? To define the course of our papers, like my student, to say, I'm going to go to these other people, and if I get it wrong, I'm going to blame them. It allows us to express our priorities and uniqueness as people, right? To set ourselves apart from the pack, because we're all able to make some choices. And people are naturally more enthusiastic about completing something, right? You go there and you complete something, it's like, wow, it's done. I got this training, I put it together to get out here, to complete it, and then at the end of the month, get a check. I'm celebrating, right? Because I saw it from the beginning to the middle to the end. So that's awesome, especially when we all are passionate about different things, right? So what you're passionate about, you get celebrated and you get the rewards with it, okay? Everybody still with me? Everybody excited? Woo! For all of them. All right, so people make decisions every day. Some are more significant than others. So what's for dinner? Or what shirt will I wear? That's an easy choice that we make every day. That's pretty simple. The more life-changing ones are at the bottom. Where will I work, right? Where will I live? And so once you get this job, so now you guys at Parker Therapeutic, you've been here for X amount of months and years, say, wow, this is cool. So what happens when you want to go to another career, another job, another organization, another state? That's when it's significant, because you start weighing out the pros and the cons and say, wow, will this benefit me or not? So for our clients, they have a difficult time with dealing with change, because a lot of change for them has meant, just going to another facility, going to another parent, and it's like starting all over again from ground zero. But letting them know that change is okay, and it's okay to make some changes and look at some of the opportunities with it as well. So what do people need to make good informed choices, rather? Opportunities to experience and know about the options in the natural setting. So again, know the pros and the cons, being able to think critically about the choices that you're going to make. And we all have to do that. And I mean, just not be so impulsive with what we do, but really say, and it was funny because last weekend, one of my buddies, he got married. It was a beautiful wedding. It was like the wedding of the year. It was really awesome. And we had a bachelor party for him. And I had to make some choices, right? Okay? And I knew that, because it was the whole group think mentality going on. I made the right choice, okay? I made the right choice, but just to really, I threw my social worker hat, because it comes on from out of nowhere, right? So bam, right? You're going to make that decision, but this guy's making some decisions, and man, you may have to live with that for the rest of your life, right?
Cell phone day.
Exactly, okay? Right, so... all right, so opportunities to trial choices and receive feedback. When the social workers, can hold their hand, helping prepping them for job interviews, things of that nature, provide support, encourage them to take care of themselves, right? We want them to take care of themselves. questions, comments before I go on about anything, any situations, any clients you had some experiences with choices? It was difficult for them to make the choice, but you held their hand. Something that's going to allow Mike to take a breath.
I had my first "It's all your fault."
Okay.
It was all my fault. I could not believe it. I had to sit back and shut my mouth. I could not believe it. Her whole life going to hell because of me.
Wow.
It ain't got nothing to do with the fact that she canceled all her appointments and she don't run out of medication and she chose to sell drugs. That is all my fault.
Right.
Yeah, I could not believe it.
Wonder why she chose Natalie as the one to blame, though. That's,
You know what?
that's
And I
my-
love
very
her.
easy.
I mean, I absolutely love
Yeah.
her.
Well, that's why.
She and I do our morning affirmations when I go out there on Fridays. Like she was like one of my favorites.
Maybe
Right.
that's why.
I was
though.
blown.
Maybe that's
I
why.
couldn't
But
believe
no,
it.
it's very easy for the clients to do that because that gives them a chance not to reflect upon their own actions.
I know, but I'm saying, well, probably because there was other people
It was
to
right.
choose
She
too.
could
You
have
know
chose her
what I'm saying?
DSS worker. She could have chose my
Right,
supervisor.
right,
She could
right.
have chose the phone paper. No. It's all that.
Oh, yeah,
And she was, I mean, adamant that it
They
is
was
all
your
No,
fault.
sure, it was because you're closer to
Yes.
her. I
Oh my
mean,
I was done. I was
yeah.
blown.
Oh my
I couldn't even say
Maybe
that.
she felt you the one that could take the blows easier.
Well, obviously I couldn't because I just sat back and shut my mouth. I didn't let them finish to me because I couldn't.
Well, it's you know, it's easy to hurt the ones you love, right? Because people will say some horrible things to people that they see on a regular basis, but somebody that they don't even know would disrespect them and they won't say anything to them, right?
I
So
heard
you're
that before, but,
an easy target, and it's hard to not personalize it as well because you you start thinking about all of these positive times we do our morning affirmations together.
I do
So
affirmation with anybody but her. I say
Right.
all my little affirmations and share with her.
well, you have to realize, and I'm sure you do at this point, that it's not about you.
Then you
It's
gotta
just-
find one that's gonna fit with her blaming. You find something within that. So when
I
you
hope
see
she
it
learned
Friday.
something from. I hope maybe at some point she realized. I mean, I think the biggest thing is I hope she didn't really believe that.
Well, I don't think so, but I mean, I think that it's good that you didn't address it there, and you give it some time, and then wait for you guys when you're doing an affirmation that maybe even coincides with that to revisit that and make that experience a teachable moment and to see where she was, right, and then allow her to take that.
Explore it a little bit.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Do it when it's not threatening because what she wanted actually from you was to come back at her and say, no, this isn't me. And what are you talking about? So she could make this adversarial type of
And make her
response.
feel better.
Absolutely.
Well, it's just like
Easier to
with
deal with somebody.
that child that was in Miss Light Out house. Remember that time she blamed me because she wanted to be removed from the home. But just like I told her, it's okay, you can blame me. I have a strong back. You know, but you and I know what really went on. It's okay. It's all right. You know. She was, I'm sorry, Miss Linda. That's what I'm saying. You probably gonna get that. I'm sorry.
I'll see. I'll let y'all know if I get that.
Yeah. But it's so many things.
I hold my breath for apologies.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, that's the one that
Child, don't throw sweat.
But it's so many things you can do with that. So I'm listening to this situation. I don't know the child, but it's kind of like that's just like some clay right there. And you can mold it however you want. And that's when you utilize those different skills on different things. You can break it down in multiple teachable moments, or however you want to address it, but put the energy towards how you want to address it and really look at it to just lift her up and allow her to grow and start thinking critically about herself and her own actions and getting her to take some personal responsibility for things, because it was a choice for her to say it was your fault. So really understanding why did she make that choice to blame you. Right, but we already know because we just said it, because she has a relationship with you. Okay, so making informed choices involves knowing what the choices are, knowing the consequences of the choices they make, making choices a reasonable person would make, and this means making choices that are legal as well as reasonable. Okay, so to smoke or not to smoke cigarettes. Okay. So, question, do I understand my choices? Yes, I know it's my choice to smoke cigarettes or not to smoke cigarettes. No one can force me to smoke or not to smoke. Do I understand the consequences of my choices? Yes. If I smoke cigarettes, I'm increasing my risk of many significant diseases such as lung cancer, emphysema, cancer. Smoking is also expensive. I may not be able to afford other things if I choose to smoke. On the other hand, if I don't smoke cigarettes, the risks to my health are greatly reduced and I will have money to spend on other things. Am I making a choice that is reasonable? Yes, many reasonable people choose to smoke cigarettes. Forget about the other line right there, okay?
Oh,
All right.
a quick question
Sure.
about that. This was like a while ago. I was reading one of my textbooks. Some of the decisions that come from making cigarettes, they're not exactly suicidal, but more like death-seeking. Like we have the information nowadays to know that if you smoke cigarettes, don't expect to die in a peaceful way. It's going to be a lot of pain. You're going to spend a lot of money, but people still choose to do it, and it's not something like back in the 50s where doctors were telling you to smoke. So I don't know if that might be linked
Well, what
to
about
it.
if you smoke cigarettes and you die from getting hit by a car?
Well, yeah, because
I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's what people thinking. To us, but
a lot
But I
of
see
people
what
think-
Eric's saying, that self-destructive.
Right. Well, that coincides with a training that I have on addictions that I'll do with you guys. But it is a social psychology, and I haven't focused on the cigarette component, but I may look at that because I think that it's interesting research to do. But there's a social psychology with the substances that people choose to use. So again, and I think we even discussed this as well. People who shoot heroin, normally have that history of abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. So they inflict pain upon themselves because they're in control. People who choose alcohol, that's because they feel like they're less than, right? Somebody's telling them you'll never do this and they feel inadequate. So there's a correlation with that. Right. Cocaine users, those are like high achievers, but so it's all of these different social psychologies with each one, but I don't have one on cigarettes, but there's a reason why people choose that. And I mean, for me, just from the top of my head, I mean, the people that I know, or at least when I was in high school, because that's normally when people start smoking cigarettes is in high school, is to be grown, right? They want to look like grown, right? So it's like, what's this need to want to look grown? It's like, oh, cool with it, so it's like, what's the connection with that? What is that need to be grown? Like, is this like people who smoke cigarettes, were they latchkey children? I don't know, right? But it just behooves us to kind of do some research on that as well.
This study is saying that what they have a slow reason to want to die or something like that.
Yeah, it did talk a little bit because death seeking doesn't necessarily mean like when you jump out of an airplane and you want to be a skydiver. Now, you don't think you're gonna die, but there's a good chance that cord could fail and you're gonna crash into the earth.
Oh, okay.
So there are activities like that because I would say some of my clients, because I know I have one that uses incels and has gotten himself in trouble. I have another young lady who admits to freely having unprotected sex. And with multiple partners, even though she dodged a bullet, and it's just like, is that the self-punishment kind of thing, engaging